Scandinavians were given more rations than the Poles were given more rations than the Russians, and the Russians were given more rations than the Jews. But even though some got better treatment than others, all of Volkswagen's workforce was hungry, cold, and overworked. And yet, a lack of food was nothing compared to the tragedies that occurred in the children's home at the Volkswagen factory, or as it was called, the Kinderheim. You see, before 1943, the Nazis' policy at their forced labour camps was to send women who got pregnant back to their hometowns. But every time this happened, Volkswagen lost one of its workers. So they asked the Nazis to modify this policy, and as a result, the Nazis instituted nurseries for newborn babies and sent the mothers straight back to the camps to continue working. And thus, Volkswagen's Kinderheim was built in a town just outside the factory. Now, it's important to note that Volkswagen was directly responsible for running the Kinderheim, not the Nazis. So the mothers had every reason to believe that their babies would be well cared for, but sadly, they were wrong. To even visit their children, the mothers had to get a police permit every time, and if they were expecting the Kinderheim to be a well-equipped nursery, it was instead just two old run-down wooden barracks. The Kinderheim was completely infested with cockroaches, flies, maggots, bedbugs, and lice, which would all crawl over the babies at night and bite their faces. Their diapers were hardly ever changed, and 15 babies would be showered in contaminated water at the same time and cleaned off with the same dingy towel. But even worse, the staff didn't make a single effort to care for the babies. The Kinderheim's doctor never examined their condition and only showed up there once every week for a few minutes. The nurses were no good either. Even though the other mothers begged them to close the Kinderheim's windows at night so the babies wouldn't sleep in the cold, the nurses just flatly refused. One of them told the staff that they shouldn't even bother feeding the babies, so they were only given a half-litre of spoiled milk and 1.5 sugar cubes each day. When asked about the Kinderheim later on, one of the mothers said, "I couldn't do anything to relieve the suffering of my child, but watch over him stealthily and weep, seeing the unlimited misery of those human beings."